How you doing, YouTubers? It's Leo Alderpold. Been a little while. So, first of all, forgive the location for this video. I'm on my way back from doing a couple of jobs, advising people about woodland creation. And I figured I'd stop for a smoke and to do a video, one in a series of videos that I've been meaning to for a while. So we'll get the housekeeping out of the way first. I'm smoking in my Twain. Some of this stuff right here. Original Warehouse Blend. This is HU Tobaccos, Nashville County. Kentucky Burley, Red Virginia. 100-gram tin from Germany. Wonderful, wonderful stuff if you're a burley lover like I am. And it's become my go-to bulk blend, I suppose you'd call it. As bulk as we can feasibly get here in the UK. But what I wanted to talk about was Timber Drifter, who I'm sure you all know and all familiar with, my good buddy Travis, asked me a couple of months ago if I'd do a video on hunting in Britain, hunting in the UK, how it works here. So to try and cut a long story short, I went out one morning while I was out deer hunting, and I took my rifle and my phone, tried to record a video about it then. I was interrupted by the local staghounds, which I will explain in due course in another video. But I was basically interrupted, so I couldn't do that video. The second time around, I spent 10 minutes thinking I was recording a video and I hadn't pressed record. Perils of a touchscreen phone in underneath ballistic glass. And it also occurred to me at the time that I couldn't possibly in one video sum up how hunting works here in this country, because there are just too many issues. It's too complex. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to do a series of videos on the subject of hunting and how it all works. So in this particular first video, I'm going to cover what's very important to me personally, which is the ethics of hunting. And then in a later video, I'll talk a little bit about the historical context of how hunting works here, because that's very, very critical to understanding hunting in England, in Britain. The politics, the history, and the class divide that is a major issue in hunting here. And then maybe in another video after that, I'll talk a little bit about the law, firearms regulations, for example, how they work. You know, firearms, fucking nightmare here, and how all that works, and how our seasons work, our hunting seasons work. So rather than try and cram it all into one video, I'm going to try and break it down into a couple of videos which have a distinct theme to them. So, that being the case, the ethics of hunting. Now this is something that's very, very close to my heart, because the reason I got into hunting in the first place, well, two reasons. The first was because as a woodland manager, or somebody responsible for currently responsible for imparting advice on how to manage woodlands, it's impossible to do so without talking about deer management and squirrel management, which are two fundamental constraints when it comes to establishing woodland here in this country. So there was that, but then the other aspect was as a responsible consumer, really. And I've always been into bushcraft, wild food, things like that. I've never had a problem with meat, with eating meat. But I did go vegetarian for a long time, the best part of a decade, because I had a moral issue with the way that that as a society we are producing a lot of our food. So there's that kind of responsible consumer aspect of it. Now, wait one moment while I relight this and gather my thoughts. So I think the first thing I want to say really is that whatever it is that you're hunting, whatever it is that you're going out to hunt and for whatever purpose, obviously your primary objective when you set out is to go and take the life of something that has every right to exist, every right as much as you do to be here on this planet. And that's a responsibility that should never ever be underestimated. Now, the moment you cease to feel sadness, remorse, whenever you've taken the life of something, is the time that you need to put your rifle down and stop doing it. Because you've lost a part of your humanity if you do. Now, unfortunately, of course, there are many, many hunters out there who don't feel a great deal of remorse, couldn't give a shit one way or another. It's just a form of control somehow. But there are also a great many hunters out there, and I've been reassured a lot recently with some of the hunters that I've met, who, despite our ideological differences, still make that point very, very strongly, that when you stop feeling sadness for having taken a life, it's the time that you should put down your rifle and never take it up again. And for me, that's very, very important, very, very critical part. I recognize that as a human being, we're part of a greater ecosystem. We're not at the top of it. We're not at the top of a food chain. You take us out of the societies, the buildings, the cars, these protective bubbles that we've created for ourselves, and put us out there in the wilderness, and pretty much most of us ain't going to last 5 minutes. We're really not as big and clever and smart as we think we are. We've just created a different world, and unfortunately, as part of that, what we've done is we've separated ourselves from the natural world, and we've separated ourselves from our own very nature, which is a tragic thing. So for me, hunting is actually a way to connect with that. We're obviously by nature omnivorous. We're not made to only eat vegetables and vegetation, regardless of what the hippies might tell you. We are omnivorous creatures. There's nothing wrong with hunting food. Other animals do it. What's wrong with that? It's perfectly natural. However, it's our mechanisms of production, of producing that food, that's what's inherently wrong, in my opinion. So one of my ways of trying to sort of cope with that, I guess, is to hunt my own as much as I can. And it's a way of taking ownership, taking responsibility for myself as a consumer, here in the Western world, in a developed world. So for me, it's very, very important to really consider what it is that you're hunting, why it is that you're hunting, and what you're actually aiming to achieve. And it's critical to pay the respect that that life deserves. No life on this planet is any more important than another. Not people, we are not the most important thing here. We are just part of a whole, part of a bigger picture. So really that's where I'm coming from. And when I set out in the morning early to go hunting, or in the evening, that's always at the forefront of my mind. I'm always thinking about my place in this life on this earth as part of this whole that is that is our ecosphere, our biosphere, whatever. I think when you cease to have respect for the world around you and the inhabitants of it, be they human or animal, and I don't differentiate between one or the other, then you've really lost something in your life. So at 11 minutes of rambling, that's a little bit about the ethics of hunting as I see them. In a later video, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of different types of hunting. Obviously, we've got, there are trophy hunting, which is very, very popular as a sport. I don't get on with that idea, and I'll explain exactly why in future videos. Over here in this country, when people think of hunters, they think of the redcoats, the fox hunters, those that run around the countryside on horseback, dressed in red, blowing bugles, and chasing a fox to death with a pack of hounds. And that also I find extremely distasteful, and goes somewhat against my moral and ethical code, if you like. But I'll explain a little bit more about those issues in the next video, which will hopefully be not sitting in my car. But there you go, that's my video on the ethics of hunting as I see it, and I will look forward to seeing you guys soon when I do the next one. Take it easy.